Now, what is the real world? Some people have the theory that the real world is material or physical. Other people have the theory that the real world is spiritual or mental. But I want you to point out that both those theories of the world are concepts. Before we decide either to save the planet or to destroy it, we pause for a moment of silence. I mean real silence, in which we stop thinking and experience reality as reality is. Most people move in constant opposition to themselves because they are afraid that if they don't oppose themselves all the time, something awful will happen. The trouble is that we have one-sided minds, and we notice the wave of life when it is at its peak or crest. We don't notice it when it's at the trough, not in the ordinary way. It's the peaks that count. Take a buzzsaw. What seems important to us is the tips of the teeth. They seem to do the cutting, not the valleys between the teeth. But do you see, you couldn't have tips of teeth without valleys between them. Therefore the saw wouldn't cut.
When I would say one of the great philosophical questions is, are we going to make it? Because this is the situation of the cosmos. Look at a star. A star is a great burst of fire. See? Well, the question is how far to go. The fire goes out and out and out and out and out, and then suddenly it begins to fade, the energy falls away, and there's darkness. Because if there isn't a point, you see, where the light gives up, or the radiance gives up, it fills everything, and therefore has no way of realizing itself. Because you can only realize light by the contrast of darkness. But if you complain about this and say, oh dear me, it's all running out, that means, you see, that you are looking for fulfillment in time. You say, if there is not enough future, we won't get the golden goody we're looking for at the end of the line. See, there is that feeling, there is the great golden goody. That flower, the golden goody, isn't at the end of the line.
Thôi đành mặc kệ con tim, để cho số phận tự tìm lấy nhau. Mình chẳng thích đi theo số thế, nhưng tại sao vẫn đến này? Chắc là mình đẹp thế này. Mọi người cứ nghĩ mình đây có bầu. Thôi mặc kệ đời số mình đây, sống hết ấy mình cũng thấy cũng vui. Có cần em phải những người ghen hơn cái đắng.
That we ignore the valley aspect of things. And so all wisdom begins by emphasizing the valley aspect as distinct from the peak aspect. We pay plenty of attention to the peak aspect. That's what captures our attention. But we somehow screen out the valley aspect. But that makes us very uncomfortable. It seems that we want and get pleasure from looking at peaks, but actually this denies our pleasure, because secretly we know that every peak is followed by a valley, the valley of the shadow of death. And that's why then you, as a ray which shoots out of the Godhead, will say, are we going to make it? In other words, how long a ray is going to be? And some people think, well, if I'm only a short ray, it's not really a great success. I want to be a long ray. I want to live till I'm 90, maybe 100, get longer and longer. See, if you look at some sort of stellar form object,
adds great interest to it if its rays are of unequal length. If they're all equal, it looks sort of flat and mechanical. But by having all sorts of different lengths, as you find them in some of those gorgeous radiolaria creatures that are minute animalcules of the ocean, there's a certain balance of length, there's a certain average which gives it a globular form, but many different lengths in the stems. Are we going to make it? This is always the question. But then you're not going to make it at a certain point. The ray finishes, and we call that death.
And so we resist change, ignorant of the fact that change is life, and that nothing is invariably the obverse face of something. So space, night, death, darkness, not being there, is an essential component of being there.
You are actually not the ray so much as the source of the ray. That's where you are really, and the source doesn't vanish.
And Lao Tzu says, sir, regard the universe. The stars come out invariably every night. The sun rises and sets. The birds flock and migrate without exception. All flowers and trees grow upwards without exception. You, by your talk of charity and duty to one's neighbor, you're just introducing confusion into the empire. Your attempt to eliminate self is a positive manifestation of selfishness. You are like a person beating a drum in search of a fugitive. In other words, try to live in such a way that nothing is either an advantage or a disadvantage.
It is the whole universe radiating around you in which you are. And this radiation is also cycling. It's the dance in which you're involved. If you'd only realize that the purpose of life is not in the future. And if you think it is, you'll go on and on and on looking for it there and never find it. Because the future in its own way fades out in the same way as the past fades out. You get older and older and older, and if you don't come crash, you just peter out. It wasn't there. And you may feel vaguely cheated about the whole thing. You were given the come on, that there was something coming. There was that thing at the end of the line, the golden goodie. But you've been sitting in the middle of the golden goodie all the time.
Jim, what do young people worship today? What do they believe? What do they hang on to? What do they hope for?
I can't speak for young people, but probably a guess would be the same things they've always celebrated, just kind of a joy of existence, self-discovery, freedom, that kind of thing.
Well, there's always been a generation gap in every age, but the gap now seems to be much more of a definite cleavage. The young people today seem to feel and think differently. What do you think has brought this about?
So-called generation gap could be a result of larger numbers of young people. I think it happened after World War II. I think it's something like over half the population of the United States now is under 18 years of age, something like that.
Politically and philosophically, the young people now seem to feel very definite ideas about the establishment, old systems of governing people, and moral attitudes.
Yeah. When I was in high school and college, the kind of protest that's going on now was totally unheard of. At that time, to be a teenager, to be young, was was really nothing. It was kind of a limbo state. And I think it's amazing just in the last 5 years what's happened is young people have come increasingly aware of the power and the influence that they have as a group. It's really amazing.
Does it surprise you that there is so much revolt on the campuses of this country against Washington and its policies?
It really surprises me because, as I said before, when I was growing up and when I was in school, it was that was totally unheard of. You know, students really had no power. But if you look back in history, it seems to bear out the fact that every revolution has started with students and spread to workers, and I'm not predicting there's going to be a drastic turnover in this country, but all the indications are there.
Life does seem to become more and more involved and complex. You know, we're becoming computerized and dehumanized in that process. That bugs me. I wonder how it bothers you and your generation.
There does seem to be a trend toward a return to a kind of primitive outlook on life, more tribal attitude, and I think it's a natural reaction to industrialization. But unfortunately, it's kind of naive because I think the future is going to become increasingly mechanized.
Cuộc đời sao lắm phong ba, chữ duyên lần đận ép nửa đời tình yêu nghe mãi xa xôi.
Look at it this way too. The hippie lifestyle is really a middle class phenomenon, and it could not exist in any other society except ours, where there's such an incredible surfeit of goods, products, and leisure time. I think that's the reason for it, because the generations
để cho số phận tự tìm lấy nhau, mình chẳng thích đi theo xu thế, nhưng tại sao vẫn để đến nay? Chắc là mình đẹp thế này, mọi người cứ nghĩ mình đây có bồ. Tôi mặc kệ đời số mình đây.
Jim, there's a line in your book of poems which reads, "The cleavage of men into actor and spectators is the central fact of our time." I think that's undeniable, but I wonder, hasn't it always been that way with society?
I suppose it has, but with mass media, today it becomes more immediately apparent. I think what I was concerned with in that book was the fact that most people feel completely void and helpless in controlling their own destinies, controlling the destiny of human life. I think it's sad. More people should be involved rather than designating all these powers to a few individuals. The average person.
Nhưng tại sao vẫn để đến nay? Chắc là mình đẹp thế này, mọi người cứ nghĩ mình đây có bồ. Tôi mặc kệ đời số mình đây, sống mẹ bầy mình cũng thấy cũng vui. Gọi cần em phải những người.
I just lament the fact that so many people are content with living a very quiet, well-mannered, orderly life when so many obvious injustices, I guess, are going on, and they seem to ignore it somehow, or not care at all. Just let it happen without ever becoming involved. I think that's sad.
Jim, relevant to your theory that people should get more involved in life and thus enjoy it more, you have written a line of poetry spectator is a dying animal. Isn't that a bit of a contradiction to what you said previously?
No, it's concerned with that same split between the actor and the audience. To me, there's something incredibly sad about a bunch of human beings sitting down and watching something take place. Just when you think about it, I love movies as much as anyone else, but the spectacle of millions and millions of people sitting in movie theaters and in front of television sets every night, watching a second and third-hand reproduction of reality going on, when the real world is right there in their living room, or right outside in the street or down the block somewhere. I think it's a tool to somnambulize or hypnotize people who are kind of waking sleep. But I think the major influence in the next decade or so is going to be people who are able to assemble masses, huge masses of people in one spot, as we've witnessed in
yêu nhau có lúc lệ tràn đậm mi đừng bao giờ nói chia ly.
Rock music enthusiasts have created probably some of the most exciting music and theatrical events on the planet. I think they're fantastic.
Well, part of Generation Gap
Em sẽ như một bông hoa ngát hương lan tỏa thiên tha tháng ngày. Dù xa tình anh vẫn đắm say như bên nhau mãi vòng tay nồng nàn. Hoa em dù hai ta hôn anh từ trên làn môi xinh. Yêu em mãi mãi chung tình. Hương hoa vẫn quyện đôi mình với nhau. Đừng làm cho trái tim đã âu. Đừng làm nỗi nhớ nát nhau tâm can. Tình yêu không đợi thời gian. Yêu nhau có lúc lệ tràn đậm mi. Đừng bao giờ nói chia ly.
What everyone should say is the medium is the message, and the message is me. That's the answer, is for everyone to, you're asking for an answer. The answer is for everyone to stand up and say, I'm me.
Đêm buồn lặng lẽ một mình tôi nhìn mưa rơi chợt thấy bồi hồi thao thức đợi chờ người xưa đến. Có lẽ người ta chẳng đến rồi ngậm ngùi nhìn cánh phương vi rơi ve ngân dạ khúc thật bùi ngùi hạ chưa kịp đi thu vội tới. Từ đây ta đã mất nhau rồi, duyên hai ta đã hết rồi.
You know, after the 60s, that was kind of looked on as a bit sort of stupid. You know, hey, all you need is love, dude. You know, well, you need more. You know, we need weapons and we need defense or whatever. You know, which is also true. But it's coming back. It keeps rolling back. This idea that what these people on this planet need is love. You know, I always say to people, you know, we could have had a really satanic message, and with the power we have, boy, you know, we could have made quite a difference the other way. But we always chose not to do that. Nobody was remotely interested in that. We had this idea that all we need is love. But in the end, I still believe it. I think the idea gets knocked every so often because, you know, it's a violent world and that you do need other things. But I still think that's the message.
That being said, all you need is love seems contradictory. What happened after Jackson
chưa kịp đi thu vội tới. Từ nay ta đã mất nhau rồi, duyên hai ta đã hết rồi.
With the Beatles, we had all those offers. You know, anybody who publishes songs, you get those offers. Hey, can we use this commercial? We had the offers from the big soft drinks companies. You know what I'm talking about. Big, huge offers to use a Beatles song, to use this and that. But we always turned them down because we believed it would devalue the whole thing. We'd be seen to be selling out, which we were keen not to do. You know, we kind of felt that our fans believed in us and that we owed them some sort of integrity. We talked to them, we knew what they thought of us, you know. So something like Revolution, you know, it meant more than a pair of sneakers. But anyone who knows music publishing, there's a lot of pressure on you to do that because the big heap of cash comes in suddenly and, you know, it's very hard to resist for anyone. But I think we shouldn't do that. I think it's more sensible to leave the kind of legend intact. And I think they'll do great songs. I think they'll continue to do great. And I think to commercialize them like that, I think it spoils them. And having taken that decision with the Beatles, it's now out of our hands, really. We don't have the authority anymore to do that because it's now been sold. But I do still think it's a pity. And personally, I also think, as I say, it doesn't make commercial sense. I think you weaken, you end up with a weak catalogue of songs that are thought of as sneakers, automobiles, Snickers bars, and stuff, you know.
If you are someone in as bright of a spotlight as Paul McCartney, you may look to the public for approval. Just like Paul's unique view on the commercialization of his songs, though, his thoughts on public approval are actually quite the opposite to what you may expect.
The only approval I really look for is my own, because it's the only way to do it. I've tried it every which way, you know, and it really is the only thing that counts. Is if you like it, then you can give it to the world, and at least when the critics say it's a bunch of rubbish, say, well, I like it. And as long as you're convinced you do like it, that's the main thing.
Similarly, the world can see Paul however they like, but Paul's own outlook on himself is the pure version that shapes the core of his being.
You know, the thing is, I am still that little kid that grew up in Liverpool. Okay, I got really famous, but in here, I'm still that little kid. So I'm amazed at like the audience reaction and stuff, and because it's like, I still don't believe it. You know, and the way I think, just like when I'm at home, I'm just slobbing out watching television. like anyone. So it's kind of him and me. Me is me, that was always in this body, and the body's just grown up.
Sure, the guy behind the eyeballs.
Yeah. And then him is that famous guy.
Wow.
He's very famous.
Despite Paul's insistence that he is like anyone, many people look up to Paul and the Beatles. But what kind of people did the Beatles look up to? One of them was Maharishi Mahesh, who was the person who introduced them to meditation and the reason for their trip to Rishikesh in 1968.
It was actually George Harrison's wife, Patty, who had heard that Maharishi was coming to town. And she said we should all go. It was one of those things. And I was personally not in a good place. I think, you know, just overdoing it in the 60s. So I was just not very sort of centered, and I was looking for something. I think we all were. So we heard that Maharishi was going to have a meeting and give a lecture, and we all went along to listen. It was very interesting. It was very calming, and it seemed like something that was worth trying. He put it very well. He made it seem simple. He made it seem very attractive. And so I think we were all just sold. So what happened then, we went to Bangor in Wales, and we attended a little seminar there. And then eventually we went out to Rishikesh with him, which was more sustained. It was great. It was very straightforward, very simple. Wake up, you would then go for breakfast in the morning, a light breakfast. You just socialize a bit with the other members and just get to know each other. And then you would go back for your morning meditation. You go back to your room. We had little chalets kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Each of us had little rooms, which were very simple but adequate. And you would just sit and you would meditate. Then there was lunch, and you'd socialize and chat and stuff. And then you'd meditate in the afternoons. Sometimes Maharishi would have a meeting every so often with you, and you could talk to him about your experiences, and he would help guide you. And then in the evening there was a kind of question and answer session, which was slightly more formal. That was in a hall, and we would all just be in there, all the students, and Maharishi would come on and talk, and then he would take questions. He would just listen about people's experiences, and that was the sort of thing that happened each day. But yeah, there were some very blissful moments. I remember one in particular when I'd been meditating for a little while, and I got to a really good place, and I remember the feeling was that I was a feather. I felt like I actually was a feather floating over a hot air pipe. And it was a very nice feeling. And I remember that vividly. And I reported that to Maharishi, and he giggled, "Yes, this is good."
Meditation is something that comes from nothing, much like writing a song. Here, Paul explains his take on writing music.
Yeah, if you think, oh, I'll write a song, which, if I've got some time and I'm just sitting around, I'm fed up with watching telly, I think I could do. So I get my guitar, and I'm very conscious of the fact there's nothing there. I haven't got any idea what I'm going to do. It's a black hole. But then I start picking away and get a little bit of an idea, go, oh, that's nice. And you follow that trail. And at the end of maybe 2 or 3 hours, you've suddenly got this thing, you've got this song. So now instead of a black hole, you can now go and play this thing to people. You can now present this little discovery. Look what I just done. And it's a great thing to be able to do. It's kind of magical.
And at 80 years old, he's still writing songs today. To most people, this may seem like an abundance of hard work, although Paul has a completely different outlook.
Yeah, I say to people when they say you work hard, I say, well, we don't work music, we play it. And even though it might sound a bit glib, it is true. To me, it would be a hobby if I didn't do it professionally. It's just something I love. It's because you're creating this thing out of a black hole, and it's very satisfying. So I love to do that. So I just keep on and on. I mean, I've always got a song on the go. I've got a few on the go at the moment, just because I like the whole puzzle of, let's try and make this song work. Is it interesting enough? Does it say it in a good enough way? Maybe I should change that line. But it's an ongoing, interesting thing for me. And then when you feel you've got it right, it's okay, that'll do. And it's very satisfying. I can't see myself ever stopping. So yeah, there's a lot of work or a lot of play.
Best advice you've ever received?
Be yourself.
Superpower you'd like to have?
The ability to love without judgment at all times.
All I can do is prepare my craft to be diligent and focused enough for when I connect and when a wave of divinity flows through me, that I have the muscles, the craft to express it and to articulate it into some kind of something.
Michael Peter Balsari, better known as Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, is regarded as one of the greatest bass players of all time. As a founding member of the band, Flea was instrumental to its formation and success. In the 10th grade, Flea met Anthony Kiedis, who he later formed the Red Hot Chili Peppers with. Their friendship continues to last now and is decorated with many successes and accomplishments. 6 Grammy Awards, 16 nominations, an induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. But let's take it back to Flea's initial encounter with Kiedis, the bond that sparked it all.
I met him when I was 15. We both just started the 10th grade at Fairfax High School in Hollywood, and we were like almost immediately like in love and at war. You know what I mean? It's like this.
Has it stayed that way ever
and
since?
And it stayed that way ever since. And the thing that I try to express about our relationship, you know, and I write about my childhood, and he's a huge part of my childhood and became my family. I mean, we were inseparable for many years, like especially when we were young. It was like every single day we were together. From the thing that I try to express about it in my book is that from the very beginning, I remember my mom, you know, rest in peace, who told me a few years before she died, she said, you know, I remember when you came home, you were 15. That is hard because I get... she said to me, she's like, Michael, you came home and you were all lit up, and you said, Mom, I finally found someone I can talk to. And I really did, you know. And, you know, like any really close brotherly relationship, it's, you know, we go at each other too, but I found someone I could communicate with in a way, and in a profound way that I hadn't had before. I knew that it was big, and I felt forces beyond me, like bringing us together. I had no idea about a professional life or anything like that, and sometimes I often feel that, like, you know, the longevity of our band and everything, it's not, you know, I know our band's been successful and all that, but it's not so much the band itself that does it, and all the professional obligations and stuff, and, you know, our desire to try to continue to be an evolving artistic entity, but like our band is a vehicle. It's like the universe has decided, well, here's this thing that'll keep them together, so just do that.
Anthony Kiedis wasn't Flea's only friend that he accomplished amazing things with. In 2001, Flea founded the Silver Lake Conservatory of Music with Keith Tree Berry, a former touring member.
The Silver Lake Conservatory of Music is a non-profit music school. I started...
Based on Silver Lake?
Yeah, it's in Silver Lake, right on Sunset and Sanborn. I started it 13 years ago. We have 700 music students in there. We teach all the orchestral instruments, all the band instruments. And, you know, when I was a kid, I was kind of a rough kid. I was on the street, I was getting in trouble, I was doing petty crimes, I was on drugs. The one thing that really kind of kept me focused was the music programs in the public schools that I went to. It gave me a sense of self, it gave me a discipline, it gave me something to work on. And, you know, after I graduated high school in 1980, Reaganomics, they passed Proposition 13, and it really cut out the arts funding in Los Angeles public schools. Terrible, and it's never recovered from it. And I went back about 15 years ago to Fairfax High School to talk to the music students there about a career in music. And I was just shocked when I walked in there. They had no instruments, they had no orchestra, they had a volunteer teacher, a boombox, to listen to music and talk about it. When I was there, I played in a big orchestra, I could play any instrument I wanted, it was incredible. So I really vowed to myself to do something to try to fill the void in music education. Because I know there are a lot of kids like me that have changed their lives. It's just been an absolutely transcendently incredible experience having a school there. It's been seeing these kids, seeing these kids, it means so much to them. And seeing, especially the ones that are really earnest and really care about it, it's just great to see them blossom and grow. No, we do, you know, some have, like we do performances for the kids and fundraisers and stuff. It's just been, just a little bit about the school. The school is not about being famous, it's not about being an entertainer, it's a really academic school, it's a process-based thing. It's not even about music education as a means to an end, it's just about the educational process itself. And teaching kids to, you know, enrich their lives with music. I don't know. It's terrible. You know, I mean, for us, we think about it as, you know, the 3 A's instead of the 3 R's, and arts, academics, and athletics, all being of equal importance, and they should all be given equal attention.
Please continue to hold art and athletics to given his immense mind and spirit,
when I'm in a healthy creative space, when I'm truly able to get gone, ignite creativity, whether the work that I'm doing is of a high quality or not, I become present, and when I'm present, I'm able to be there for other people, to I mean, music and all forms of art as well. And I, for me,
như một bông hoa ngát hương lan tỏa thiên tha
anything that makes you completely present.
dù xa tình anh vẫn thắm say như bên nhau mãi không thay đổi cả hoa em dù úa hay ta dù hôn anh gửi trên làn hoa xinh yêu em mãi mãi chung tình hương hoa vẫn quyện đôi mình với nhau đừng làm cho trái tim đã âu đừng làm nỗi nhớ nát nhọn tâm can tình yêu không đợi thời gian yêu nhau có lúc lệ tràn đậm mi đừng bao giờ nói chia ly.
This resurgence when after years of hard work, the Chili Peppers finally bursted into stardom. The stark change of lifestyle took an intense toll on Flea's mental health. It took a well-respected friend's words of wisdom to get him through the hardest times of his life.
I was about 30 years old in 1991, 92, 29 years old, just turning 30. And I became incredibly ill. And also, like, my band had just become this, we had gone from years of, sleeping on people's floors, touring in vans, doing all that. And all of a sudden, everything we wanted came. All the money, all the validation, all the "you're so great." And I became so sick, and it wouldn't go away. And for 2 years, I lost it. My immune system fell apart. Everything that I thought made me great. Like, I could rock out all night, I could take drugs, play basketball all day, be the funniest guy, be the drunk guy, be the high guy, be the this guy, and I had nothing. And everything that I thought was me was gone, and it was completely traumatic. And it was like the universe forcing me to sit still and to deal with myself. Everything fell apart. I stopped. I canceled everything. I went home. And I was like in tears all the time. I was depressed. I was miserable. And I was like that for about over a year. I started like going to doctors and trying this and meditating and, you know what I mean? Like, help, Mr. Wizard, and I knew I can't do drugs anymore. I can't. I stopped everything. But it wasn't until, and there's someone, like a woman I really respected, told me, she was like, "How you doing?" I said, "I'm just fucking miserable. I'm so sad every day." And she said, "Well, Flea, until you get on your knees and be grateful for exactly where you are, it's not going to change." And that's what I did. Devastatingly humbling, But it literally, it's like at that moment, everything shifted in my life. It was a watershed moment.
Since then, he's exploded back into the music scene, creating numerous musical masterpieces. From Give It Away to Under the Bridge, there's something we can all enjoy. Flea is so talented and well-practiced that his playing often seems effortless. Even so, he speaks of creative frustrations that he still struggles with in the present day.
In every creative endeavor I do, in a state of fear, in a state of not being good enough, in a state of yearning and reaching for trying to fulfill the feeling of what I want, of what I want to connect with. I have my moments. I have my moments when I'm gone, like when I'm playing live and I'm absolutely gone. And I know that where was that hour? Well, I was just a channel, You hear like great actors talk about acting. They're always looking to get lost, to get in the moment, to be gone, to let their true self out, even when they're being someone else. I have moments of, like, I get anxiety a lot when recording because I'm always I'm yearning so much to get in this, like, lost and beyond thought and gone and just feeling like I'm just, light is coming through me, And when I can't get there, and I know I'm sitting here thinking about, well, maybe my wife would dance if I played this, so this has got to be good because her and all her girlfriends would dance. But even then, I'm mad at myself because I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And like, even if it was a moment of levity and I actually kind of got into a good rhythm for a minute, I'm like, fuck, I'm thinking. And then I start having a panic attack because I'm not supposed to be thinking, I'm supposed to be gone. So I have that struggle. But Rick gave me an analogy once, Rick Rubin, about similar to ditch digging. He's like, it's like, Flea, you're going fishing. You can't get the magic groove every time. You cast your thing, you're diligent, you stay there, you're always fishing. And sometimes you catch, the magic behemoth, Beowulf comes, rears his head from the depth, and everything happens. And sometimes you sit there and get a sunburn, and that was a kind of a similar analogy for me.
And I think it's safe to say, when he is able to clear his mind of thought, there truly is something magical expressed. But what does Flea want his audience to take away from this expression?
All I want the work to be a vehicle for connection, to bring people together, to create love and create empathy. And for people to just trip out and get lost and have joy and to identify it. Well, let me simplify this. I want any art I make to serve the purpose of making people feel less alone. That's the whole thing.
Ringo Starr is one of the last remaining members from the iconic rock group, the Beatles. He made an obvious impact on the music scene throughout his life, but his sense of spirituality is also no secret. Many people often contemplate the question, what is God? It's looked at as one of the most complicated questions one could answer in life, although Ringo is able to explain it in the most simple and profound way possible. Although that's just my opinion. Hear it in Ringo's words, and decide if his definition is true to you.
I'm going to ask you a very simple question, Ringo. What is God?
God to me, my God in my life, God is love. Pure love. Love is an incredible power. If you give out love, the reaction to it is so great, even to like crazy violent people. If you give out love, they stop for a minute because everybody notices love when it's coming your way. And you feel incredible when you give love back. I feel that, as you go through life, you make certain moves, and it's very hard, these moves, and you don't feel good about it. But if you're doing something with love, all of this behind you, all over the world, will support you. So that's how it is. That's how the world works. It's all the one God. The books I've read, it all says good and love. Vietnamese monk, whose name I can never pronounce, but he's saying that, just in your daily life, to be doing things. And he says, like when you get to the traffic light, it's no good getting crazy. Just love the red light, and then when it changes, drive on. And he says, and when you're angry, it's no good being angry at yourself, because then you're twice as angry. I like to keep that in my life also.
It's convoluted because there are a lot of religions that believe that their God is greater, or a lot of people...
Yes, but that's people. This is not God. This is what the religion says. And the people who, are in that religion. I am not religious. I'm trying my best on a daily basis to have a spiritual life. I think, everybody wants their religion to be, universe-wide. And they're not. Like all the natives of long ago, most of them we wiped out in the name of religion, let live. The American Indians couldn't understand the concept of buying land. What do you mean you want the land? It's for all of us, And the world is for all of us. We are one. I feel I had spiritual moments as a young kid. And, I feel I had spiritual moments as a teenager, just seconds. There's things I remember of this emotion. And, as you know, we went to India and Maharishi, and we tried that, and we looked at that. And since then, we're just like looking and searching and hoping and crying and laughing. I heard one guy say, called Young, he was so great. He was asked, do you still believe in God? And he said, no. He says, I know.
I don't need to believe you. I know.
He's the only one I ever knew who said, I know. How great is that? you know, people are frightened of the word God. You know what I mean? They don't, oh God, I mean, well, you can't like just say God. Well, you can. You know, someone asked me once, well, what is your concept? And I went to go off into these 60s madness of energy and things like that. And I'm like, God, oh my God. God is love. Keep it simple.
What do you think happens when you die?
Personally, I believe I go somewhere.
So you believe that your spirit is separate from your body?
I do. And the spirit does not cause the madness, you know, it's not the power-hungry situation that a lot of humans go into. That's the human condition. God is love. Love is love. You know, and the more we put love in our life, that's all I ever want to say. There's more love on the planet.
Although many people left the peace and love message in the 60s, Ringo held on to it strong. It's become his motto in life, and he spreads the message of peace and love any chance he gets.
Some people who first ran into the peace and love message in the 1960s gave up on it. How did you hold on to the peace and the love, Ringo?
It just became natural for greeting, peace and love, brother. You know, it was embedded in the 60s, of course. I didn't invent it. And I love the 60s. I mean, what a change went on in everybody's life. Thanks to Timothy Leary, of course. But I don't know, it's just that I was on tour. You know, I hadn't been out live for years. And it just became like, hey, peace and love, everybody. And it just sort of went from there. Then we have my birthday. Special, 7th of July, and we have a peace and love moment at noon. And so I just use it any way I can because I truly believe in peace and love.
In 1968, the Beatles traveled to India to take part in a transcendental meditation course with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. A quote from Ringo that sticks out to me is, "At the end of the day, I can end up just totally wacky because I've made mountains out of molehills. With meditation, I can keep them as molehills."
Over 40 years ago, we ended up in Rishikesh, and that's where we met. Well, it wasn't where we met, it's where we hung out with Maharishi. We'd met him a few months before in Wales. And since then, sometimes a lot, and sometimes a little, I have meditated. And, it's a gift he gave me. Was my mantra, that's something I could use and something no one could take away. So it's one of the few things I was ever given that means that much to me.
Having someone as accomplished as Ringo, it's strange to think of who his role models would be. Although it seems clear to me that he looks up to Maharishi. It's no surprise that he's a supporter of the David Lynch Foundation and its efforts to fund the teaching of meditation in schools.
When I first met him, I was in a room because it was in a university, so we're like in dorm, in a dormitory, we're all living. And it's one of those mind-altering moments of your life because the man was so full of joy, and happiness, and it just blew me away. On my best day, I never felt like he looked. It was so far out. I just thought, I want some of that. You know what I mean? I was the best thing that could happen.
Where were you before that? What were you?
Well, I never meditated in my life.
But even just your head, No,
my head was a bit in those last sort of 67. Mainly 67 was a bit confused. A lot of things were going on. And anyway, he was one of the people who helped me out of that. Just, not that he said, here, I'm helping you out. He was helping everybody, but he seriously helped me. Well, the sense of David in his work is brilliant. I mean, he's doing a lot more than I am, and you, and, the foundation. I mean, that's what it's working for. The big one for me, of course, is the bringing meditation into schools. And, and he was telling me that, they know from the heads of schools that the violence has gone down. How far out is that? Particularly when kids are taking guns into school. I know. Well, it's in like
hard schools it mainly goes in. That is incredible. You have to support him for that.
I don't ever wanna feel like I did that day. Take me to the place I love. Take me all the way in the place I love. Making music with my band. The most sacred thing that I have going is creating sound with my best friends.
I just have to gently suggest that you make the most out of your life and treat every single person that you meet with love and respect.
I don't care what class you come from, what race you come from, what gender you come from. People are people. You're going to be assholes and you're going to be amazing people.
Anthony Kiedis of the Red Hot Chili Peppers was born November 1st, 1962. Since then, the band has sold countless records, been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and even earned a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Despite the profound impact Kiedis has had on the world, he believes kindness is the #1 way to make the world a better place.
What's one thing that you believe would make the world a better place?
Just one thing. My honest answer would be kindness. My sort of self-centered answer would be music. And my super-centric answer would be air that you can breathe. Having just come from Cairo, where the simple, taken for granted act of breath is not an option. Let's go with kindness. I feel like when you get to the metaphorical gates of Peter, really all they're going to ask you is, were you kind? And I don't know, maybe the whole point of this little tiny blink of an eye that we're here is just to decrease the suffering through kindness and other thoughtful acts. It could be painting, it could be caregiving, it could be just smiling. That's all.
Anthony was recently a guest on the Joe Rogan Experience. The conversation was one of my favorites, and I think we can all learn from Anthony's simple yet profound philosophy on life.
Sometimes I'm shy and bashful and reclusive and I just want to chill. And people want to take pictures or have me talk to their girlfriend on the phone. Small price. This brings me to my new philosophy in life, which I remind myself every day. So 2 months ago, we were playing at the MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. Big, beautiful stadium full of people excited to sing and dance. And these two painter sisters from Texas, raised in Manhattan, brought their friend to the show. We're like, great, come and we'll hook you up with tickets and passes. Come say hello. Beautiful people. And the girl they brought was radiant in every aspect of the word. Physically beautiful, energy, kindness, just light. And all of my friends are like, who's that girl? That girl's amazing. Just a friend of our painter friends. And a week went by, and I opened the paper, and I saw this girl had died unexpectedly. 33-year-old actor, model, artist. Wow. And she woke up and died. And they're not sure why. Maybe sepsis. Who knows? Young people are dying these days. And I thought to myself, I woke up today and I complained about how long my room service took, how muggy it was outside, and the traffic, and I decided this girl was just a giver of a human being, and she got plucked. So I said to myself, don't be a bitch. Nothing to do with gender or animals, just bitchliness, selfishness, self-obsessed, self-centered, whiny.
Weakness.
Yeah. And what do I have to complain about?
Right.
Let's look around the world.
Yeah.
Syria, Yemen, Ukraine.
Right.
On and on.
Yeah.
So every time I go there, which is daily, I wake up and I'm like, where's my thing? And how come these people aren't doing what I want them to do? The voice comes into my head, don't be a bitch.
Right.
So that's my new live by philosophy.
Do you meditate at all?
I do meditate at all, not enough, but I do, and I love it, and it's my go-to.
Yeah.
And I believe in it. Rick Rubin actually shared the art of meditation with me when I was a kid, younger, early 90s. He brought the TM Institute into his living room and offered the whole band an opportunity to learn. And I did it religiously for a while, and then I put it down. But now whenever I feel like the monkey mind, in a car, in a plane, in a train, in my bathtub, in a tiny little kid's chair somewhere on the back porch, I'll take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and it's profound. We went to a Native American reservation last Wednesday, to play a show. And about 9 months ago, we were putting out all this music, and Flea had been to a powwow. And he's like, the dancing blew me away. They're so dedicated. They're so beautiful, so artful. It's like, we got to get to a reservation and play music. I was like, great idea. Let's do it. So it finally came to pass last Wednesday, and somehow we chose the Hoopa tribe in Northern California, in Hoopa Valley, California. And we arrive, and it's a school gymnasium, and it's a free concert, and all of our equipment is there, and it's just cool people. They're very poor and very isolated, and we just wanted to go rock out for them. But the first thing they did was give us all this cool stuff that they made, which is Native American gear, and they wanted us to wear it. They're not worried about appropriation. We could sing songs all day long about our take, like my band, on their experience. They love it. If we get it right, if we get it wrong, they just love that we care. And it was the best show of the year for us, because nobody paid. It was kids in a school gymnasium in the middle of nowhere. Surreal. They didn't believe we were coming. They're like, we don't believe it. Why? Why us? Like, we chose you. Let's just have fun.
That's amazing.
But they definitely defied the concept of appropriation, like right off the bat. Here's our stuff. Please wear it. We love the culture. We love it. And, people are people. I don't care what class you come from, what race you come from, what gender you come from. People are people. You're going to be assholes, and you're going to be amazing people. Just people are people.
Listening to the Chili Peppers, there is a vivid sense of nature passing through their music. It's no surprise to me that Anthony is a frequent surfer and has a deep connection with the ocean.
The ocean is so full of life and peace and nature and excitement. That's my tank these days.
Yeah, you were telling me about your love of surfing the other day. You love it, huh?
I do, because it gives me that feeling, that freedom, and there's an energy. That's what I want to do till the day I die.
Wow.
Just go sit out there waiting for a wave. If you think about the storms 3,000 miles away raging in the ocean, sending that wave of energy through the water, when it finally releases, when it hits the shallows, it's a rush, it's a drug, it's a high, it's a natural high where you're next to whales and dolphins and pelicans and eels and anemones, and just looking back at the coast with a different point of view. No phone, no technology whatsoever, just water and a board.
There's also a thing about being next to the ocean that's very humbling. I think it's very good for people to be just confronted by inescapable beauty and power of nature. That's what oceans do.
I need that. I need to be humbled daily.
It's good for everybody. The mountains do the same thing.
They do. 100%. Yeah. You know what the root of that word is?
Which word? Humble?
No. To be close to the ground. To be low to the ground.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Feels right.
If you know the Chili Peppers, you know their hit song, Under the Bridge. Not only is it a musical masterpiece, but it's evident that the song was crafted from a place of raw emotion and truth.
The hardest of the hard, the gangsters of LA. I'll be riding down the Sunset Boulevard, and I'll hear Under the Bridge coming out of a lowrider, and it is the toughest, scariest, most loped out looking dudes just melting with Under the Bridge. I'm like, okay, that was a day well spent writing that
Song on our new record called Under the Bridge, which is a ballad, if you will. And that song came about because during the course of my life, what you may call a hardcore junkie for many years. And during that point in my life, it was a very sad time, and everything beautiful and precious and sacred to me sort of took a back seat as my need for this chemical dependency just got more and more disgusting and insane. And unfortunately, I've been clean for 3 years now, and my life took some massive changes, and everything that was sacred and beautiful that I had lost did not go back to me more than I could have ever hoped for. But during that time, I reached some ultimately low depths of incomprehensible demoralization, which are very much my memory. And part of that incomprehensible demoralization is loneliness. And that's something that I think every drug addict can relate to, is there's this incredible deep sense of loneliness, of emptiness that you're trying to fill up with whatever it is that you find. In my case, it was drugs. So sometimes I get these bursts of loneliness that kind of remind me of that point in my life. And one day I was driving back to rehearsal with the black record that we were writing, and I got one of those bursts of loneliness, and I didn't really feel like there was a single soul in the universe that I could connect with, on a gut level, on a heart level, on a spiritual level, on a level of love. I just felt like I was all by myself. So I started singing to myself on the freeway, on the Hollywood freeway, coming back to rehearsal. And without thinking about anything, an entire song came into my head. When I got home, I wrote it down. And the crux of the song is based on loneliness. And there's this one little lyrical phrase that comes in at the very end of the song, which says, "Under the bridge downtown is where I drew some blood. Under the bridge downtown, forgot about my love. Under the bridge downtown, I could not get enough. Under the bridge downtown, I gave my life away." And what that was referring to was a point in time about 5 years ago when I had nothing in my life. I had no friends or places to live, or automobiles, or relationships with my family. And all I had was this connection of mine named Mario, who was a Mexican mafia ex-convict, and he and I would stroll the streets of downtown looking for our next score. And on one particular afternoon, it was very hot in the middle of summer, and I'd been up for days, and he and I found what we were looking for, and we went to this bridge that was downtown in the middle of Los Angeles in this ghetto, and it was a freeway bridge. And there was a little passageway that you had to go to get under the bridge, and only certain members of this Mexican gang, which were all ex-convicts, were allowed to go in there. And the reason that they let me in is because this guy Mario said that I was going out with his sister, which was a lie, just so we could go in there and do what it is we wanted to do, which was to use these particular drugs we had just got. And that always sticks in my brain as a low point in my life, basically, about as low as I could get. And the chorus of the song is, I don't ever want to feel like I did that day. Take me to the place I love. Take me all the way. The place I love is where I am now. Making music with my band, which is, to me, the most sacred thing that I have going is creating sound with my best friends.
People always say I'm the Beatle who changed the most, but really that's what I see life is about.
That the planet is in the control of mad people.
The soul is in this body for a period of time, and then it leaves the body. It's like, in a way, the body is like a suit.
George Harrison is a man who needs no introduction. He passed away November 29th, 2001 at the age of 58. He left behind one of the biggest musical legacies of all time, but also an abundance of philosophical and spiritual knowledge. His intellect on worldviews only grows in relevance as time goes on.
I'm unhappy about the world being concreted over and all the forests chopped down and the air polluted, and the fact that the planet is in the control of mad people. People who are crazy, people who are greedy, all these people who are selling the rainforest and, any forests, just selling it because they make some money without, I'm very unhappy about that, but I have a long-term view, which is all things must pass. I mean, before it used to be maybe they're going to blow us up with H-bombs, but even that, I thought, it don't really matter. They can't destroy what's within ourselves. Krishna said, there's no time when we didn't exist, and there'll be no time when we cease to exist. The only thing that changes is the body. So even if they blew us up with H-bombs, our soul will stay in our other astral body, and the only thing that won't be here is physical. So, I'm sad about it, the world, but I look at it from within and without.
In 1968, George traveled to northern India alongside the Beatles, where they took part in transcendental meditation training with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. This is a technique George kept with him for many years to come. Although George learned more than just meditation in India, this trip also helped craft his views on religion and spirituality.
I happened to get into meditation through music, really, Indian music. And I went to India to learn a bit of Indian music, and inside I always had a desire to know about yogis. And I can't explain that one. It's just something that's been in me from some time in the past, and I wanted to know about that. So I had the opportunity to find out about it in India, and consequently that led into meditation, because really the only reason to be living is to have complete, full knowledge, full bliss consciousness. Everything else is just mundane and secondary. I wanted to know some method of enlarging my own consciousness, and that's meditation. It's been there millions of years, and knock and the door will be opened. The thing that really got me interested was, after being brought up as a Catholic until I was about 13, I couldn't take it any longer because it was just full of hypocrisy. The teachings of an Indian called Vivekananda, which really impressed me. He said, if there's a God, we must see him. If there's a soul, we must perceive it. Otherwise, it's better not to believe. It's better to be an outspoken atheist than a hypocrite.
And this, for me, going to India and hearing somebody saying, no, you can't believe anything until you have direct perception of it. And I thought, wow, fantastic, at last, find somebody who makes some sense. And so I wanted to go deeper and deeper into that.
The whole basis of religion is to have the experience, have that perception. So there's these methods for God perception, self-realization, which is yoga and meditation, and the process you have to get from a spiritual master, somebody who's an authority on this sort of thing. And the technique we did with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi was a form of silent meditation, which, you can transcend. The purpose is to transcend from this relative state of consciousness to an absolute state of consciousness. People think this is me, and this isn't me, this is just a bag of bones. Basically, everybody is spirit, which is really what Christ was here to tell everybody about. The kingdom of heaven lies within, which is the state of being, pure consciousness. So, through many years of pollution of consciousness through material energy and this association, then we've all ended up in a fallen state. But really, everybody is basically potentially divine. So yoga, all these methods are really ancient methods just to stir the pollution of your system and consciousness, and to cleanse the system. The whole thing, the purity that they talk about in religion, is really a mental, physical and spiritual purity, which is obtained through discipline and through practice. So the meditation we did with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi was to sit silently and to transcend through the sense of sound, like you can transcend with hearing or with touch or taste or vision. Like I think some Buddhists meditate by concentrating on an object, like either a garden, Japanese gardens, on candles, looking into the flame, and they transcend that way. But this method was to transcend through sound. So you give them a mantra. The mantra brings all your body to rest. It calms everything down, and it brings sort of harmony and union just to all your senses. And this way, your thoughts become fine and fine and fine until you can arrive at a point which is transcendental, which means beyond. It's beyond the senses, beyond intellect.
Nhìn mưa rơi chợt thấy bồi hồi thao thức đợi chờ người xưa.
People always say I'm the people who change the most, but really that's what I see life is about. Unless you're God conscious, then you have to change because it's a waste of time. Everybody is so limited and so really useless when you think about the limitations on yourself. And the whole thing is to change, try and make everything better and better. And that's what the physical world is about, it's change.
Change that happens through meditation. I mean, it's a gradual sort of thing. But the more you realize with anything, with just growing older, the more you realize it helps you in some way. With meditation, you're able to understand that there is this unity lying beneath everything. There's something there within every atom that holds it all together, and that in actual fact it really is one. But on an intellectual level, to say it is we are one, then, I mean, again, you miss the point. It's an experience. You have to really have that perception. Maharishi said, for a forest to be green, each tree must be green. So if you stand back and criticize the rest of the people, it's again, Christ said, put your own house in order. Automatically, if I'm to criticize somebody else, I suddenly come back to myself and realize until I'm straight, then I'm in no position to be able to criticize others. Any time of the day, any situation you're in, you can get control of yourself just by sitting quietly and by turning off from the external problems we have, noise and all this society. You can go inside yourself where it's always calm and peaceful. On this level of consciousness, it's like the ocean, which is always changing, and the bottom of the ocean is always calm and still. And if you're not anchored to the bottom of the ocean, you're at the mercy of whatever change goes on, so that you can still act out your life on the surface, but you remain anchored securely.
When asked about astral projection, he relates back to experiences he had during meditation. His views on astral projection and death also seem to carry similar traits.
A strange experience when I was in Rishikesh. I went on a meditation course where the object was to meditate deeper and deeper and deeper for longer periods of time, to plug into the divine energy and to raise your state of consciousness and tune in to the subtler states of consciousness, and all those things like walking on the water and dematerializing your body at will are just sort of things that happen along the way. So it's hard to actually explain it, but it was just a feeling of just the consciousness traveling. I don't know where to, and it wasn't up, down, left or right. No body there, but at the same time you don't feel as though you're missing anything. You know, the consciousness is complete. How I see it is that the soul is in this body for a period of time, and then it leaves the body. It's like, in a way, the body is like a suit that you put on.
Do you have any idea where it goes?
Christ said in the Bible about the 3 cages for the bird of paradise, which is the soul being the bird of paradise, and the 3 cages being the 3 bodies that house the soul. And there's the
They call it the causal body, and then around that's the astral body, and then there's the gross physical body. So death is really when the physical body falls off, but the soul's still in two other bodies, so it's then on the astral level.
Do you think life is rigged?
In some respects it is, although we do have control over our actions right at this moment. I think what we are now is the result of our past actions. What we're going to be is going to be the result of our present actions. As again they said in the Bible, that God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. That means the law of karma, action, reaction. So we can, there's certain things that maybe there's no way out, like there's no way I wasn't going to be in the Beatles, even though I didn't know it. In retrospect, I can see it was a setup. But at the same time, I do have control over my actions, and I can, do good actions or bad actions, or like I said, I could try being a pop star forever and going on TV and do concerts and be a celebrity, or I can be a gardener.